Usually when we try to figure out how something started, we look for physical evidence, right? Like the stuff left behind.
Right, yeah, like a crime scene.
Exactly.
Right.
Think of a detective walking into a room. You look for footprints, or maybe a stray fiber, a smoking gun. And it's comforting because it's tangible.
You can actually see it.
Yeah, you can point at it and say, there, that's what happened. But then you step into the world of cosmology and you ask the biggest question possible, like, how did the entire universe begin?
The ultimate cold case.
Literally, what is the first cause of everything? And suddenly that crime scene is just entirely cleared out. We're looking at an origin story that is, honestly, it's incredibly murky.
It is the absolute definition of cosmological muddy waters. Because, when you're talking about the beginning of time and space, the standard tools of observation and measurement, they just start to break down.
Right.
Or at the very least, they get incredibly complicated to interpret.
And that murkiness is exactly what we're navigating today. So we're doing a deep dive into a stack of sources that examine this ultimate first cause of the universe.
And it gets wild pretty fast.
It really does. The mission of this deep dive is to explore a truly bold claim from our source text. The claim is that out of 3 possible first causes, so that's theism, physicalism, and something called the Way of POE, which stands for Ontological Existence, out of all of those, only POE has actual, measurable material proof.
Which is a massive statement to make in cosmology. I mean, truly huge.
Yeah.
But I want to ground this immediately, because we aren't just going to be, sitting in armchairs debating abstract metaphysics today.
No, we've got actual data.
Exactly. To unpack the source material, we're going to look at hard astronomical data. We're talking about the cosmic microwave background, the specific constants of our physical laws, and actual measurements taken by satellites in orbit.
So real observable stuff.
Right. We're looking at how observable phenomena intersects directly with the absolute biggest questions of existence.
Okay, so to really understand why this Way of POE claims to have material proof, I think we need to start by looking at its competition.
That makes sense. Establish the baseline.
Yeah, because before we get to the proof, the text argues that the 2 most popular theories out there actually lack empirical evidence entirely. So let's look at the first one, which is theism, the classical theological position of a creator.
Right. So positing that a transcendent creator initiated the universe, that inherently means pointing to something existing completely outside of time, space, and physical law.
Outside the box entirely.
Exactly. Now, from a purely empirical standpoint, this operates just totally outside the bounds of verifiability.
Because, you can't put something that exists outside of physics into a test tube.
By definition, you can't. If a cause exists outside of our physical reality, it cannot be directly measured, period.
Right.
It can't be falsified using standard observational tools. Accepting this model, it relies on metaphysical deduction or personal revelation or faith.
Faith?
It does not, and really cannot, rely on physical data that a scientist can actually measure.
Okay, so that brings us to the second model, the physicalist approach, which today is usually represented by the multiverse theory.
Right. Very popular right now.
Super popular. It's this idea that our universe is just one random bubble, one fluctuation among countless others. And a lot of people think of this as the strictly scientific alternative to a creator.
They do, yeah.
But our sources point out a huge epistemological problem with its material proof, too.
They absolutely do. Because the multiverse hypothesis, it's heavily rooted in mathematical extrapolations from things like string theory and cosmic inflation.
Right.
And look, the math is undeniably elegant, and it resolves certain quantum paradoxes on paper. But here is the catch.
There's always a catch.
Right. These other universes within a multiverse framework, they are causally disconnected from our observable universe.
Meaning we can't see them.
Exactly. Light or information from them can literally never reach us.
Okay, wait, let's unpack this for a second. So it's kind of like being in a theoretical casino where the math dictates there are 1 million slot machines.
Okay, I like this.
But you are only ever allowed to look at and play on one of them, like the one you're currently standing at. You just have to trust the math that the other 999,999 slot machines are actually in the building.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because you can never walk across the casino floor to check if the other machines are real.
You're just stuck at your machine.
Stuck there forever. And because you cannot gather empirical data from those other causally disconnected universes, critics argue that believing in an unobservable multiverse requires a degree of theoretical trust that, frankly, it borders on non-empirical belief.
Wow. Wow. So it's like faith in the math rather than faith in a deity, but it still fundamentally lacks that smoking gun in the room with us. We're
Yeah.
assuming a mechanism we just can't see.
Precisely. Even if the underlying mathematics remain internally consistent, you cannot observe a multiverse. You're relying on epistemic bounds that stretch way, way beyond physical observation.
Which brings us to the core of our source text today, the Way of POE, or Ontological Existence.
Here we go.
Right. So if the first two models require faith or theoretical trust, how does POE differ? According to the text, it shifts the focus away from the unobservable, away from transcendent creators or invisible alternate universes, and points directly at the physical anomalies right in front of us.
Stuff we can actually measure.
Yes, it says the evidence is already here, embedded in our reality. And the first piece of evidence it points to looks at the very shape of the universe itself. Proof number 1, the octopole anomaly.
Okay, so this is where we get into the heavy astrophysics. To understand this anomaly, we have to look at the lambda CDM model, which is the current standard model of cosmology.
The mainstream view.
Right. It combines the Big Bang with dark energy and dark matter. And a foundational assumption of this model is that on a large enough scale, the universe is homogeneous.
Meaning it's all basically the same everywhere.
Yes. If you look at the cosmic microwave background, the CMB, which is the oldest or relic light in the universe, the temperature fluctuation should be completely randomly distributed.
Right. If you look deep enough into space, the background radiation should be like a perfectly mixed smoothie, right? Just totally random temperature variations no matter what direction you point your telescope.
That was the expectation, yeah. However, we send up incredibly sensitive satellites, specifically the WMAP and Planck satellites, to map this radiation across the entire sky.
Yeah.
And they found something that standard physics did not expect at all. They found a massive anomaly in the low multipole moments.
Okay, hold on. Low multipole moments. I know this is a dense concept in the text. Can you break that down for us? What are we actually looking at here?
Sure. Think of multiple moments like the acoustics or harmonics on a guitar string,
Oh.
but mapped across a massive three-dimensional sphere, right? The higher moments are the tiny, high-pitched ripples. The low multipole moments, specifically the quadrupole and octupole moments, are like the deepest, lowest bass notes ringing across the entire universe.
Wow. Okay.
They represent the absolute largest scale temperature fluctuations we can measure.
So they are mapping these massive cosmic bass notes, expecting them to be totally random.
But they weren't random. The WMAP and Planck data showed that these massive fluctuations are actually aligned along a specific preferred direction in the sky.
And astrophysicists gave this a very dramatic name, didn't they?
Oh, they did. The axis of evil.
The axis of evil. I mean, that sounds like a comic book villain's headquarters.
It really does. But they called it that because it completely disrupts the assumption that the universe expands equally and randomly in all directions. It was a major headache for standard models.
So if I'm a mainstream physicist looking at this axis of evil, my first instinct isn't going to be, the universe has an inherent geometric architecture. Right, I'm going to assume my satellite is broken. Or maybe that there's some dust in the Milky Way throwing off the sensor.
And that is exactly what mainstream science has spent the last 2 decades trying to prove.
Really? Just trying to explain it away.
Basically, yeah. They assume it's a systematic error or a local foreground effect
Yeah.
or just a really weird statistical fluke. But the POE framework looks at this exact same data from a completely different paradigm.
Okay, how so?
POE views this alignment not as a glitch in the hardware, but as direct structural evidence of an inherent directional geometry built into the very fabric of existence.
So it's arguing that existence isn't just a random explosion expanding equally everywhere. It has an inherent structure, like a form that it is actively asserting.
Exactly. POE asks a very pointed question. Why invent an invisible multiverse to explain our universe's origins when we have literal structural anomalies in our own universe that standard models are actively trying to ignore?
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah. POE takes the precise alignment of the oldest light and says, this is the structural fingerprint of the first cause.
Man, okay. So if the physical structure of the universe's axis of evil shows intentional geometry, what about the energy that fills that structure? Like, does the light itself carry a fingerprint?
It does, actually.
Because that is where the sources go next. We move from the structural shape of that oldest light to the physical nature of the light itself. Which brings us to proof number 2, the relic flash.
Right, the electromagnetic frequency of the initial flash. So if we dial the clock back to the early universe, there was a specific epoch when the universe transitioned from being this dense, opaque plasma into transparent space-time.
Basically the moment the cosmic fog lifted.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Protons and electrons finally combined, and light could travel freely for the very first time.
Okay, I'm with you.
That transition left behind relic radiation, which is the cosmic microwave background we just discussed. But the POE framework zeroes in on a very specific data point regarding this radiation.
Which is what?
It is a blackbody radiation curve that peaks at a highly specific microwave frequency spectrum. It peaks at roughly 160.4 gigahertz.
Wait, really? We literally have the exact radio station frequency of the universe's birth. 160.4 gigahertz.
That's the number, yeah.
But help me connect the dots here, because I'm a little lost. Why does pointing to this specific number give POE a leg up over a theory like the multiverse? I mean, every photon has a frequency, right?
Yeah.
Why does this one prove an ontological first cause?
It all comes down to how you define the threshold of existence. In a multiverse model, you are relying on an abstract, infinite mathematical landscape where every possible variation of physics exists somewhere.
Right, the infinite casino.
Yes. Our universe's specific laws are just a random roll of the dice in that infinite casino. But POE argues the exact opposite. It argues that existence itself is not abstract. It is a physical constant.
Oh, okay. So instead of saying the universe began with this vague, random energy event, POE points to this exact thermodynamic state as the physical threshold of existence manifesting.
Taking that further, it grounds the concept of cosmic inception in observable, measurable energy. It says the first cause isn't a mathematical theory. It has a specific physical weight, a specific temperature, and a specific frequency of 160.4 gigahertz.
That's fascinating.
Right. If existence is physical, its origin must have a specific measurable signature. By anchoring its metaphysical premise to a verifiable thermodynamic constant, POE provides a material artifact of the first cause.
It makes the origin tangible.
Yep.
We aren't trusting the math of a million other slot machines. We are literally pointing a radiometer at the sky and measuring the exact heat signature of the one machine we know exists.
Exactly. It is treating that 160.4 gigahertz frequency as the foundational physical pulse of existence asserting itself.
All right, so we have the shape of the oldest light, the axis of evil. We have the exact thermodynamic frequency of that light, 160.4 gigahertz. We've looked at the birth and the underlying structure.
The physical foundations, yeah.
But the third piece of proof in our source material turns to something else entirely. It looks at the contents of the universe, specifically the fact that we seem to be completely alone. Proof number 3, the eerie silence of Fermi's paradox.
This is where it gets really philosophical. Because we have scanned the skies, we have incredibly sophisticated instruments listening to the cosmos, and the observational reality is striking. It's just a complete absence of detected extraterrestrial signals.
Right. Given the sheer scale of the universe and the billions of habitable planets out there, the fact that we hear absolutely nothing is deafening.
It really is.
Now, standard models usually view this silence as, a puzzle of timing or biological bottlenecks, or maybe just the physical limits of trying to communicate across thousands of light years.
The standard view essentially assumes the universe is teeming with life and we just keep missing the phone calls.
Yeah.
But the POE framework interprets this silence as an intentional feature of cosmic conditions. It views the silence not as a lack of data, but as the data itself.
And this is where the perspective shift is just wild to me. Normally, we treat the empty universe like a failed party where nobody else showed up.
Right.
We assume the other guests got lost or died on the way. But POE is saying, what if it's less like an empty stadium and more like waking up to find you are the only one sitting in the pilot seat of a fully automated ship? Like, the ship wasn't built for a huge crowd, it was built for a single pilot.
That captures the nuance perfectly. POE views the eerie silence as an observational baseline that emphasizes the unique, localized emergence of consciousness within spacetime.
Meaning us.
Meaning us. If the universe's first cause was existence asserting itself through inherent self-contained laws, then the emergence of an observer might not be a random biological accident.
The localized consciousness might actually be the whole point. The silence just highlights the singularity of that consciousness.
Exactly. It completely shifts the narrative. The immense silent scale of the universe isn't a void waiting to be filled. It is the necessary physical scaffolding required to support a localized observer. And again, this relies on observable reality. The empirical reality is the silence we measure every single day.
Okay, so we've walked through these three massive pieces of physical data. The axis of evil showing a directional geometry, the 160.4 gigahertz frequency grounding the birth in a specific thermodynamic artifact, and now the eerie silence highlighting localized consciousness.
Right.
Which brings us to what the source text calls the epistemological showdown, which is a great phrase. Does all of this actually constitute proof of a first cause? The text argues it all comes down to epistemology, like how we define knowledge and how we validate truth.
This is really the crux of the debate. It is about how we define the link between observational anomalies and metaphysical conclusions. Standard physical science and the POE framework operate on entirely different epistemological foundations here.
Right, because if we look at the mainstream view, standard science treats anomalies like the CMB octopole alignment or the specific redshifted cosmic recombination as parameters just waiting for better physical models.
Yes. They assume we just need a better telescope, or that we need to subtract the dust in our own galaxy, or that there's some systematic instrument correction we haven't figured out yet.
They assume the anomalies will eventually disappear and fit back into our standard randomized models.
Exactly.
But the POE framework takes the opposite approach. It doesn't view these measurements as errors waiting to be fixed. It interprets these physical realities as concrete artifacts proving that existence operates through inherent self-contained laws.
Yes.
But I have to push back here, because I'm sure you listening are thinking the exact same thing. Aren't the POE folks just taking unexplained scientific mysteries and slapping a metaphysical solved sticker on them?
It's a fair question.
I mean, we used to think lightning was a metaphysical event until we understood electricity. Isn't this just a God of the gaps argument? But instead of God, it's the POE of the gaps.
It is a critical distinction to make, honestly. But the God of the gaps relies on inserting an unobservable external agency to explain what we don't know. The argument the source text makes for POE is fundamentally different. POE is not an external agency. It is the assertion that existence itself is the self-contained law.
Oh, I see. So it's not inventing a new force outside of the universe to explain the anomaly.
Exactly. What is fascinating here is the distinction between ignoring data and interpreting data. If you adopt a purely multiverse perspective, you are essentially ignoring the weird, highly specific anomalies of our observable universe in favor of an infinite number of unobservable universes where the math is cleaner.
That makes total sense.
You are relying on what we can't measure to explain away what we can measure.
Right. It's like saying our universe is weird, but the math says there are infinite normal ones out there, so it's fine.
Yes. But POE, on the other hand, builds a self-consistent worldview entirely out of what we actually can measure. It links its metaphysical premise that existence is a directed, inherent form directly to the physical data.
And mainstream science is still debating all this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Mainstream physics is actively testing whether these anomalies stem from conventional mechanics. The jury is absolutely still out on the physics side.
Yeah.
But epistemologically, the source text argues that POE succeeds in demonstrating how observable, empirical phenomena can form the basis of a cosmological worldview.
So it doesn't ask you to believe in a transcendent space outside of physics, and it doesn't ask you to believe in an infinite casino of unseen universes.
No.
It points at the telescope data, the geometric alignment, the specific microwave frequency, the silence, and basically says the blueprint of the first cause is written right there.
It is treating the universe as a system that is actively asserting its own existence through form, energy, and ultimately consciousness.
This is so much to think about. Let's pull all of this together for everyone. We started with the classic problem of the first cause, the ultimate empty crime scene. And we explored how classical theism and the multiverse models, while incredibly popular, fundamentally lack material, measurable proof. They require us to place our trust in realms way outside our physical observation.
Right. Then we explored how the Way of POE challenges those models by anchoring its theory of the first cause in hard, measurable data.
The structural alignment of the WMAP and Planck octopole moments, the specific 160.4 gigahertz thermodynamic signature of the universe's initial flash, and the undeniable silence of Fermi's paradox.
The data points that are actually there.
Right, and we saw how the interpretation of that data, whether you view it as a glitch waiting for a better telescope or as a foundational artifact of existence, defines your entire cosmological worldview.
It really highlights that the line between physics and metaphysics is often just a matter of how we choose to interpret the anomalies in our data.
Totally. Whether you are prepping for a deep philosophical debate or you are just insanely curious about the actual architecture of the cosmos, understanding these different frameworks changes how you look up at the night sky. It challenges us to rethink whether the universe's quirks are just random glitches in the system or if they are the intentional structural scaffolding of existence itself. We have to look at the data and ask what story the universe is actually telling us.
It certainly frames our place within the cosmos as something deeply integrated into the physical laws, rather than just a random byproduct of them.
Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Something to mull over that builds on this whole POE framework. If the eerie silence of the universe is an intentional feature if this massive silent ship was physically structured from the very first 160.4 gigahertz flash to highlight the localized emergence of a pilot, it raises a truly wild question.
It really pushes the boundaries of why an observer exists at all.
Exactly. Did the universe simply create consciousness by accident, like as a biological byproduct? Or, in order to truly exist as a physical reality, did the universe fundamentally require an observer to be born? Think back to our crime scene from the beginning. We were looking for the tangible evidence to prove how the room got there. But what if the room didn't actually exist in any meaningful way until the detective walked through the door to observe it? Something to mull over until next time.